What is going on, guys? We are back with another episode of our Pokemon TCG Pocket, and in today's one, guys, we're gonna be looking at the new trailer that just came out, for the new Shining Revelry, whatever it is. Um, Starting a little earlier, but as some of you guys know, I got married on Friday when this trailer released, and so of course, naturally get married, have the weekend, away and stuff like that. And yeah, of course the video drops right then and there. So I wanted to get my first reactions to it and get, some kind of reaction up to it. So I do have some notes. I did see the trailer once on like kind of like in our hotel room basically. So I do have some thoughts that I have formulated, but I kind of wanted to be able to kind of talk about it with you guys in real time. Yeah, so without further ado, let's start the video and let's see what's good here in this new set. I believe it drops on Thursday. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna probably do like a live stream of opening packs with it. Because I think that's just the best option for me. Unfortunately, I work pretty much the rest of the week, so a little bit difficult for me to be able to have a recorded video. So I think be on the lookout for a recorded video Saturday, and of course make sure to leave a like, subscribe for this as well. And yeah, let's hop right in. So alright, so the first card that we see here is that everything's about shiny Pokemon, which is really, really cool. I think this is something that gives some alternative artwork for people to have. If someone wants to have a shiny Pachirisu and a regular Pachirisu in their deck, it gives them a little bit of variety. You can just be like, that's my lucky Pachirisu, and it comes in the clutch, you know what I mean, versus the other one that just is just your regular one. So I do like that, and I do think that, they're going to start making shiny Pokemon in general. I think that that is something that cosmetically is really cool for everybody, and I just really like that overall as like a concept of being able to kind of have different artwork forms of things. So yeah, so right away that is really great right away. So yeah, so starting off here, it looks like it's a mini set, so it's just one, but we actually get Charizard here, and this is Charizard EX with different moves, different abilities, same HP stat it looks like, and the same retreat cost. So basically the biggest difference here is that Stoke is a 1 energy fire type attack that adds 3 fire energy to this Pokemon. So what you're really looking at is a turn 1. If you had no energy and a Charizard, which, is rare, but you would be able to maybe put 2 colorless energy and maybe play Charizard in a non-fire deck. And no, it would have to be a mixed deck, right? It would have to be a mixed deck because you'd have to have at least 1 fire energy. So maybe you're playing it with Druddigon, right? And you have fire and water in your deck. You can potentially play a water type energy and 1 fire type energy that allows you to use Stoke very, very quickly on turn number 3. And then on turn number 4, you can start attacking for 150. Now, the biggest thing about this is that it's 150, but you never stop being able to use the move, where Crimson Storm discarded 2 energy, and it was faster than what you could ever put back. So eventually you would run out of it. But the biggest thing that concerns me with this Charizard is that 150 is 10 damage short of knocking out the 140 base Pokemon in the game currently when they are holding a giant cape. So you're going to need Giovanni support for this card. It's also possible that people are going to want to try Dawn with this card. And I think if you're running Dawn, Giovanni, and all these other things, I think you're going to run out of space. So the 150 damage is nice, consistent. I think some people might try to play a 1-in-1 of the Crimson Storm one and the Steam Artillery one. But I do think overall, right now, people play Charizard because the 200 damage knocks out everything in the game unquestioned, right? So I don't know if this Charizard is better. Consistency versus high risk, high reward, right? I think is really what this card is. This card doesn't necessarily need to be paired with Moltres EX, and I think that in itself can open up a lot of possibilities team building wise. where the other one wants Charizard. It wants Moltres. It wants the extra energy. It wants the high rolls. Where I think in this one, there's no real desire to have more heads on Moltres than what you need. And so I think that's sort of kind of the trade-off with these Charizards. But overall, having a shiny Charizard in your deck is really, really cool and really, really fun. So I think that's sort of kind of my initial thoughts on this Charizard. So let's keep moving on here. So then we have my boy Lucario EX, and you can see right away, so 150 HP, so it's a little bit bulkier than the other one. Aura Sphere does 100 damage for 3 energy and also does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So right away, I think this Lucario is a one of when you're playing the other non-EX Lucario. The nice part about EX versus non-EX builds, unlike the Charizard one, is that you can play 3 copies of Lucario this way, right? So what I think is going to end up happening is that this Lucario is going to basically be a tech Hitmonlee, because what we've seen right now is that they switched out Hitmonlee for Sudowoodo, for Hitmonchan, with Marshadow in those builds with Lucario, to take advantage of the ability to boost the attack by 20, where this, now you still get the benefits of having Hitmonlee's 30 bench damage while playing it on a Lucario, which is a lot better, and Lucario can still get the boost from other Lucarios and get up to like 120. The only sucky part is there's only 2 Riolus, right? So you're gonna have to sort of kind of, maybe you play a Celestic Town Elder to get a 3rd Riolu, but I don't think that's how that works. So at the end of the day, I do think that this is a one of. You're gonna play 2 of the non-EX, maybe 2 of the non-EX or 2 of the EX, and play 1 of the other, and try to do what you can that way. So overall, though, I think 130 damage overall for 3 energy is pretty efficient. It's a little bit better than Machamp, for example. As a total, obviously 120 directly is a little bit stronger, but in this particular situation, 100 damage does miss out on KOs, but the biggest difference is that you're going to be able to, like, this knocks out a Druddigon in the lead right away, and also knocks out a Magikarp if you can get set up that quickly. So, for example, this does very, very well against Gyarados. And, most basic Pokemon have like 60 HP more or less. So, I mean, you could easily pick up 2 KOs off of this Lucario in one go. So I do like the card. It's lacking a little bit of damage. Some people, again, I think that you're gonna want to play this with the non-EX version, and so there's definitely a possibility to get to 120 with this, and then 150 damage really for 3 energy is pretty efficient. So I do like this card. But yeah, I think that's sort of kind of where I sit with it. It misses natural KOs otherwise, though, and like even Arceus, right? Like you're gonna need the other Lucario in play and have 3 energy attachment to knock out an Arceus that you maybe wouldn't KO without the second Lucario, because you're only going to get 20 extra from the super effectiveness. So being weak to Psychic isn't really a big deal right now, because Psychic is currently not the strongest. So I think they're getting support, but hopefully they'll get support anyways, because I do think that I think people are gonna have to start experimenting with things, because fighting right now is like the second best deck in the format, because the non-EX Lucario with Rampardos is literally the second best deck right now. So I do think that Psychic types are gonna have to find a way to get relevant again. Otherwise, we're gonna be, Lucario's gonna run. You're gonna see a lot of Lucario everywhere. Okay, next up, we see 3 basic Pokemon here. So we see Wiglet, Pachirisu, and Varoom. So Wiglet, spring out 1 energy, basic Pokemon. One of your Pokemon's Pokemon at random is chosen, and it does 30 damage to it. It's okay. It feels like a Hitmonlee that lost control of its legs. So, I mean, not bad, right? Another basic. It's a 1 energy. It's easy to play. Varoom, I'm assuming, is 1 steel energy for Headbutt. You have to obviously see what it evolves into. Well, we know what it evolves into, but what the stats are on that card, whether it's even going to be good or not. But overall, I mean, more steel cards is good. This Pachirisu card, though, is very, very interesting. I do think that this Pachirisu is basically the electric version of Manaphy with a little bit of trade-off, right? You get a little bit, you get 20 more HP, and you can attack with it for 10 damage at the cost of having one less energy attached to your Pokemon. So I do think this is another version of energy accelerant that isn't that basically isn't going to be Magneton. So there's now an alternate way to play electric energy for that. So I do appreciate this. I think this card is going to be super relevant if electric types become relevant again. And I think that Pachirisu is going to end up being played as a 2-of. It's going to basically be like the Manaphy of water decks, and you're going to start seeing this card get played a lot. So be on the lookout for that one for sure, because I do think this one potentially is meta defining, depending on how valuable electric types are start to be again. Then moving on here, we get Tatsuguri. Tatsuguri, 70 HP. Basically play it on the bench, and your Donzoto has no retreat cost, which is pretty good. Rain Splash does 20 for 1 energy. It's a basic. Of course, we don't actually have the Donzoto card, so it's a little bit tough to say what this card is. I'm assuming that Donzoto is going to get an attack boost for Tatsuguri being on your bench. But obviously, it really does depend on what Donzoto has as HP and as an attack to figure out what you're really doing with this card. It's a very nice full art card, though. Don't get me wrong, but we need a little bit more information for me to really say whether this card is good or not. Then we get Sprigatito and Pinsir. So Sprigatito obviously goes into Masquerada. So its basic version, being able to cry for help, which is basically a better. It's basically Caterpie, right? And it's very, very good for your basic Pokemon to be searching very specifically. And if you can play Sprigatito in a deck where you play your 1 grass energy and it pulls a grass Pokemon for you, even if you're playing it in a multicolored deck, which we haven't seen anything to just that it does want to be in that deck, but you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to get that evolutionary line. And if you're playing it in an all grass deck, at least you're getting your Pokemon out quickly. And I'm assuming that people are going to play 2 copies of Sprigatito, probably, right? So 2 Stage Evolutions, you almost always want the 2 at the moment. So having 2 cards that are going to search you out Pokemon is basically just free Pokeballs. So you could maybe even play less Pokeballs in your deck. And so I think the Sprigatito card could be really good. And Masquerada is a really fast card, so I'm assuming it's going to continue to have a low retreat cost. And then we'll see how good the rest of the evolutionary line is. This Pinsir is 3 energy. Flip a coin until you get tails, and this attack does 40 more damage for each head. So potentially 40. Or potentially 50. Well, it's guaranteed 50, but I just think overall, these Pinsir cards that are just so high variance, I don't like them, but someone's gonna play it, someone's gonna try to use it, and yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Moving on, we get Red. Red, during this turn, attacks used by your Pokemon do 20 extra damage to your opponent's active EX Pokemon. This card is basically a double Giovanni against EXs. This takes away the giant cape from any EX Pokemon that your opponent wants to do. This is going to be very good in tournaments. I think on the open ladder, we are getting ranked mode soon, so I think the ranked mode, you're probably going to see EXs on the ranked ladders a lot more than the random ones, probably. So, but I do think that this card, if you're playing it, I think it should most likely be a 1-of in a deck. The biggest reason for that for me is Giovanni has a little bit more universal support for your deck, where this red card is just very, very strong against the X's. So if you're gonna play Pseudo Wudo or like Tauros, it might be worth playing red, right? Because now you get the opportunity to do really high damage outputs with them. But otherwise, I think, in a tournament, especially if you're playing like Ursa Day Pocket Tournament, if you're playing maybe the Spraggles, Oglandian one, if you're playing the Frog EX tournaments, these ones where they're all open deck lists, making sure that your opponent can see that you have a red in the deck is going to make them play a lot differently in those tournaments, right? But in a random ladder, you're going to run into random things, right? So is red going to be as useful when you could play 7 games in a row against non-EX decks and know that that card is going to be useless? It is what it is, but I do think that it's a very, very good card. And I think most people will probably play it as a one of in tournaments for sure. Okay. And then we get Iono, which is a card in the TCG that does very, very similar things. Each player shuffles the card in their hand into their deck and then draw that many cards. I know that people are going to think that this card is most likely like a hand disruption for your opponent. I actually think that this is more of a high risk, high reward drawing card for yourself. The biggest thing is that you give up Iono as a card, and then you're switching out the rest of your hand. So you're -1 when you're drawing all these cards. Your opponent just gets a reset of whatever their hand is. So it's actually it's a -1 for you, but it's a get out of jail free card for you having a bad hand or you needing something very specific. I think you're going to see this be completely replacing Chatot for any player who uses Chatot at all. I think you're going to see this be played in 2-stage evolution decks that the 2-stage like getting that evolution is more important than pretty much anything else in your hand. And I think fossil decks will try to take advantage of Iono. I think you're going to play Iono after you exhaust every other option. Like you're gonna try for Pokemon communication before you try for Iono, but I do think this is like a one of in a deck that is very strong potential and is kind of a Hail Mary disruption card if you really need it for your opponent. So I think it's a decent card, but normally in other card games, um, that each player resets their hand kind of vibe is normally like a middle of the road card in most of the card games. Um, but again, most of the card games also have a lot more cards in your deck. So there is that trade-off. My initial thought is that it is a last ditch effort card, both for yourself and as a disruption to your opponent. So that's sort of kind of what I think. But moving on to the next one. So obviously this comes out Thursday, March 27th. So and then we get the rest of the EX cards here. So these will be available the next morning. And I'm assuming that these are deck missions. So what I'm assuming is going to happen is that you have to beat all of these decks and beat all the requirements that gives you at least one of every card that they put in these decks. And then you have to, and I think that's maybe a way to help. I think that's what's happening. That's sort of the kind of speculation. But if they give you at least one of each of these cards, because they put this set out so quickly after the last set, I think that will appease some of the players that don't spend money on the game, and so they'll at least have one copy of the cards to be able to actually continue to do things. But looking at these cards, so we have Tickaton. Tickaton is a 2-stage evolution, 170 HP steel type Pokemon. It requires 1 more energy than Marowak to basically have Marowak's effect, right? It's 80 damage. Flip a coin to do another 80. So realistically, outside of the fact that it has adamant support and it's more HP, I just don't think this card is playable. Marowak hasn't shown to be very, very good, really since Genetic Apex. This is just a steel type version of it with more HP. Unless the baby forms have more viability to them than Cubone did. I can't see Tickaton being a terribly common card. Giratina EX is very, very interesting. Its ability is one of, I think, 3 cards in the game right now that allow you to potentially get energy first turn. This ability also seems to activate from the bench. And so say that you play Giratina with like a very passive lead Pokemon like Druddigon. You're not attacking with Druddigon anyways. You're okay using this ability to end your turn. So getting that 1 energy on turn 1 is pretty strong. Then on turn 2, you can play your own energy, use the Bellow card again, and then you can switch it up to the front, play your energy, with Leafer, for example, and now you're attacking for 130, like on your 3rd turn, which is pretty strong. The other thing that I think you could do with this card is play it with the non-Giratina EX card, the baby Giratina, basically, and then be able to play 1 energy onto the baby form that has the free retreat cost, and then you can Dawn up your energy back to the Giratina when you need it later on. And so that's sort of kind of like a couple different ways that I could see people trying out Giratina. The only disappointing part about it is that 150 HP is not the highest when you have to factor in that you have recoil on your attack. So you do 130, which is 10 damage short of beating Arceus. So that's a problem, like, immediately. Psychic currently is super effective against Lucario, but it's not super effective against, like, other fighting types necessarily. So, obviously, with like Sudowoodo is grass, Rampardos is grass. So there's still some problems there. And then the 20 recoil puts you in range that Arceus does revenge kill you, and you don't knock it out. So there is some problems with Giratina. I think they've done Giratina a little dirty again, but I do think that there is the option that you have energy accelerant, and so you can play this in a non-psychic deck if you were willing to give up 3 turns to put 3 psychic energy onto it, but I think that's asking a lot. So, Pikachu EX, moving on. Pikachu EX for 3 energy has a Thunderbolt attack of 150. This is Mew fodder. Mew EX is going to absolutely crush this Pikachu. But they get online at the same time, so it's sort of kind of a race to your energy for that. But this Pikachu does discard all of your energy, which does make me think this is actually a card that's supposed to be played with Volkner, and then have a Volkner card as a finisher at the end of the game. Because, yeah, I mean, I can't see people playing. I could see people playing maybe 1 copy of the old Pikachu EX and 1 copy of this Pikachu EX. They can play it off Volkner, maybe have a more consistent Pikachu at the back. But overall, I think this is a more complicated Pikachu to play. 150 potentially, like, so for example, right? So let's say that you can do the Pachirisu Pikachu play, right? You put your first energy on Pachirisu, you get to attack, you put 1 energy on Pikachu. Turn 2, you X speed out the Pachirisu, Dawn up to this, and now you're doing 150 on turn 2. It's very, very strong. But I do think the fact that you lose all 3 energy, this Pikachu's kind of sitting duck at 120 HP after that fact. So I do think it's a 1 of in a deck, unless you're playing it with Volkner, in which case it might be a 2 of, but I think you probably want it to be a 1 of anyways, because you don't want to lose the game on it, right? Wugtrio EX in the bottom corner here is, in my opinion, just straight up a better Dragonite. It's 1 less evolution, 20 less HP, less energy to attack, and does 50 less damage, but does basically all the same things. It randomly attacks things, and does 150 damage. So, the other big thing with Wugtrio is that you're going to have Irida support, you're going to have Manaphy support, you're going to have Misty support. Like, this is going to be a problem card, I think. Dragonite is considered really not a great card. This is an EX version of it that is a lot faster to get online and potentially is more disruptive. I hope that because it's gimmicky that it won't get played a lot, but it's a significantly better Dragonite in a lot of ways. So there's that. Palladian Clodsire. So my boy Gilko would be very happy about this. But basically 160 HP for a 2 energy Venoshock. This is effectively just a 1-stage evolution version of Scolipede. Which is okay. It did well, when Psychic type decks were good. Um, Scolipede had some success. It was very niche at beating Mewtwo and Mewtwo only back then. The fact that Arceus is immune to status. And Arceus, I don't see Arceus completely falling off right now. I think that this card is at best middle of the road. Until we get some sort of poison from the bench support, I think. Because it has 3 retreat costs. So normally they were playing with Koga Weezing. The Weezing had a high retreat cost, but at least you had Koga to pull it back. But now this is beached, right? It's beached in your active slot after it gets the poison off. And even if you can't poison something, right? You do 120 damage, get the KO. Well, the next Pokemon that come in isn't poisoned, and you have a 3 retreat cost, right? It's a beached active Pokemon after that point. So I do think that we're going to need poison support from the bench to be able to keep Venoshock relevant. And at that point, I think this card could be okay. Beedrill EX is very, very cool. For me, anyways, I looked at it as the first 100% accurate energy disruption that we have, which is really interesting. It's also funny to me that Beedrill has such high HP stat when in the games it's like one of the frailest Pokemon ever, but 170 HP is very, very good. I think it's probably a trade-off for the fact that this is only 80 damage attack, but 2 energy attack for 80, while it at face value is not very good. If you put Beedrill up against a Palkia, no matter whether you're going first or whether you're going second, you are going to be able to stop Palkia from ever hitting 4 energy without Misty support, which is crazy, right? Like, you're completely stopping the big high energy attackers from attacking at all, right? Like, look at Charizard, look at Giratina, right? Look at this next card, Bibarel, right? They're four or 5 energy attackers, and you only need 2, right? Now, granted, I think Bibarel can get online potentially faster than Beedrill, but Charizard is going to have problems, right? Giratina potentially is going to have problems against Beedrill because Beedrill is going to be able to just chip you for 80, which unfortunately against the Charizard matchup, it's a 3-shot. But, the fact that you can potentially always stop it from hitting its 150 damage attack is pretty good, right? So I think Beedrill has a lot going for it. I think it's one of the cards that I think most people are going to be the most interested in playing. I don't know what Pokemon are going to want to be paired with it, but I think this Beedrill card is extremely good. It's a low energy commitment, so you could actually afford to have a pretty high energy Pokemon in the back. And of course, this also has Erica support, which is crazy. So it's going to be able to heal up 50 twice. So there's going to be a lot of healing on this card. This card is going to be able to be a frontline, disruptor for you potentially. So I think Beedrill is pretty cool. And then this Bibarel card, I think, is just a discount Venusaur, really. A little bit less HP, has a weakness to fighting, which is currently the second most popular deck. 100 damage and heals 30, but you don't have Erica support. You'd have to play it with water to be able to get Irida support. Yeah, I think it's in every way, shape, or form, it's a discount Venusaur that requires the same amount of energy commitment. So I think that's a little tough, but overall, I think it could be good. I think the people that started the game newer, they're gonna have a version if they couldn't get the Venusaurs from Genetic Apex. Although I know that for me, like, I've been going back and hunting just for the full art trainers at that point. So but yeah, so that is sort of kind of my thoughts on these cards that came out Friday. I'm very, very excited for Thursday. So be on the lookout for a live stream, probably in the evening. I think I work until like 4:30 or something like that. So, when I get back, I'll set up a stream for the evening, and we'll open some of these packs together. And then once we can actually get some things going, we'll start making the videos again on how to play them. So, yeah. So let me know what you guys think of the cards that came out and were released on the trailer. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys the next.